Surrounded. Let's begin with something that's often overlooked but deeply symbolic: the bed. You see, surrounded. The bed is not just a piece of furniture. It's not simply where we collapse at the end of a long day. Surrounded. Psychologically, emotionally, and even spiritually rounded, the bed functions as one of the most sacred spaces in your entire environment. It's where your body repairs. Surrounded. Where your subconscious opens, where you're most vulnerable and most open to renewal. And yet, surrounded. It's often treated like a dumping ground. Think about that. Surrounded. The average person spends about 1/3 of their life in bed. That's not just time, it's presence. Surrounded. Your energy lives there. Your thoughts settle there. Your dreams, anxieties, rounded, and even your unspoken desires all pass through that space. Surrounded. So when you place something on your bed that doesn't belong, something filled with stress, dirt, rounded, or chaotic energy, you're not just being careless. You're disrupting something foundational to your well-being. Surrounded. From a psychological standpoint, your environment is constantly giving feedback to your nervous system. Surrounded. If your bedroom, and especially your bed, is cluttered or treated without care, surrounded, your brain doesn't get the signal to calm down. Rest becomes shallow. Sleep becomes ineffective. Rounded. And what follows is not just fatigue, it's decision fatigue, emotional instability, and yes, rounded, even financial missteps. Because when you're not rested, your judgment suffers, your clarity fades. Surrounded, your drive weakens. And this is where poverty begins, not always in the bank account, but in the mind. Rounded. Philosophically speaking, the bed can be viewed as a threshold, a place between the conscious and the unconscious. Surrounded. A bridge between the seen and unseen. It's where the day dissolves and where intention for tomorrow begins. Rounded. You do not bring yesterday's chaos into that sacred space. And yet people casually toss their purses, their bags, surrounded, their dirty laundry, sometimes even shoes, onto their beds without a second thought. What are these things really? Surrounded. They are symbols of outside energy, obligation, tension, sometimes even illness. Rounded. You wouldn't invite a stranger into your home and let them lie next to you while you sleep, yet energetically surrounded. That's exactly what we do when we put these things on our beds. And here's something even deeper: rounded. When we disrespect the symbolic order of things around it, we unconsciously send a message to ourselves that we're not worth protecting, that our peace is negotiable. Around it, that our rest, our recovery is secondary to the demands of the outside world. And over time, surrounded. That self-message breeds poverty, not just financial poverty, but a poverty of spirit, a poverty of intention. Surrounded. A poverty of discipline, respect. You start to settle, you start to accept less sleep, less clarity. Surrounded, less direction, because you've made it normal to compromise in the one place designed to restore you. Rounded, you want to attract abundance. Start with honoring your bed. Want to strengthen your immune system. Rounded, protect your rest. Want to stop living in survival mode. Rounded, clean the one space where survival mode should never follow you. Surrounded, because every time you throw a bag filled with stress on your bed, surrounded, every time you let clutter pile up on your sacred space, you're not just being untidy, you're making a choice. Surrounded, a philosophical, psychological, and spiritual choice to allow the chaos of the world to invade your healing zone. Surrounded, this is not about superstition. This is about alignment. Rounded, it's about recognizing the invisible laws that govern energy, focus, and restoration. Surrounded, the bed is not just where you sleep, it's where your future gets shaped in the silence of the night, rounded. And if you treat it carelessly, the consequences don't show up immediately, but they always show up, surrounded. Protect your bed, protect your life. That's the principle. And once you understand that, surrounded, everything else begins to fall into order. Let's start by rethinking something that seems so ordinary, so routine, rounded, that most people overlook its deeper meaning, the bed. For many, surrounded, the bed is just where the day ends, a place to sleep, to scroll through your phone, maybe toss some clothes on, throw your bag down and collapse, rounded. But that simple act of carelessness, placing the wrong things on your bed, can carry consequences far greater than you imagine. Surrounded, not because of superstition, but because of what your bed represents, surrounded, and how the energy around it either nourishes or depletes you. The bed is more than furniture. Surrounded, it is the most intimate space in your home. It's the one place where your body, your mind, surrounded, and your spirit are completely unguarded. Think about it. When you're asleep, you're unconscious, surrounded. Your physical defenses are down, your emotional boundaries are open, surrounded, and your subconscious mind is more active than at any other point in the day. In that state, rounded, your environment matters. What surrounds you doesn't just sit there passively, it interacts with you, rounded. And when you turn your bed into a holding area for bags, electronics, dirty laundry, or work-related items, surrounded, you're introducing energy that's incompatible with peace, rounded. That's not just poetic language, it's a psychological reality. Your brain makes associations. Surrounded, it creates mental links between spaces and functions. When your bed becomes associated with stress, clutter, surrounded, or disorder, your nervous system doesn't know how to fully relax. Rounded, that constant low-level alertness, the sense that there's something unfinished, rounded, something unmanaged, erodes the quality of your rest. You don't just wake up tired. You wake up mentally foggy, surrounded, emotionally off balance, less decisive, more reactive. And what does that cost you? It costs you clarity, rounded, productivity, creativity, and over time it costs you money. Because the foundation of prosperity is not effort, rounded, it's mental alignment. If you're exhausted, overwhelmed, and spiritually untuned, surrounded, no amount of hustle can compensate for what's missing. There's also a deeper philosophical truth here. Surrounded, the bed is symbolic. It represents your relationship with stillness, with restoration, with vulnerability. Surrounded, how you treat your bed is a mirror of how you treat yourself. If you allow chaos to settle there, rounded, you're not just disrespecting a space, you're communicating to your subconscious that your own peace is negotiable, surrounded. And that message doesn't stay confined to your bedroom. It leaks into how you set boundaries at work, surrounded, how you manage money, how you respond to conflict, surrounded. Disorder in the most private space of your life eventually shows up in the public areas of your life. Rounded, I've seen this over and over again. People wonder why they're stuck in cycles of poverty, financially rounded, emotionally, or even relationally, but they're sleeping in beds that are energetically overloaded, surrounded. Their sanctuary is compromised. There's no separation between the world and their inner life, rounded. And when you remove that separation, you remove the space where growth actually happens. So let me ask you, surrounded, what are you allowing into your most sacred space? Surrounded. What are you unconsciously tolerating that is slowly pulling you away from alignment, from clarity, from purpose? Rounded, is it just a purse, just a laptop, just a pile of laundry? Or is it a pattern of neglecting yourself? Surrounded, of treating rest like an afterthought, of never fully detaching from the noise. This isn't about being obsessive, surrounded. It's about being intentional. It's about recognizing that the smallest habits often shape the biggest outcomes. Rounded. And the bed, as mundane as it may seem, is one of the most powerful spaces you interact with daily. Surrounded. If you want to change your life, start by respecting where your life regenerates. Never forget this. Surrounded. How you treat your bed is how you treat your energy, and how you treat your energy determines the quality of your entire life. Rounded. There's something deeply fascinating about the way cultures across time have treated the bed, not just as a place of sleep, surrounded, but as a symbolic threshold. Whether you're looking at Eastern traditions, indigenous beliefs, surrounded, or ancient spiritual systems, the message remains consistent. The bed is a sacred space. Surrounded. It's not to be treated casually. It's not to be contaminated with outside energy. And most certainly, surrounded. It's not to become a resting place for things that carry the vibration of the outside world, especially objects linked to money. Rounded. Work, illness, or conflict. This isn't coincidence. These beliefs come from generations of observation. Surrounded. Long before modern psychology or neuroscience confirmed the impact of our environments on our mental state. Surrounded. Our ancestors already understood intuitively and spiritually that what you bring into your most intimate spaces has a direct effect on your energy. Surrounded. Your health and your ability to thrive. In African traditions, for example, surrounded, it's believed that placing items like money or bags on the bed invites lack, poverty, not just in the financial sense, surrounded, but as a spiritual condition. Because when something associated with public activity, exchange, rounded, or burden is placed in a private, restorative space, it disrupts the spiritual balance. Surrounded, it creates what some would call an energetic clash. And while that might sound abstract, surrounded, consider it through a psychological lens. When you blur the lines between stress and rest, surrounded, between the outside world and the inner sanctuary, your mind never fully detaches. Surrounded, that chronic overlap wears you down. You don't recover. You carry invisible tension in your body, and eventually, rounded, it shows up in your finances, your health, your mood, your mindset. Even in Eastern philosophies like Feng Shui, surrounded, and the idea is the same. Your bedroom must be free of certain energies in order to preserve harmony. Bags, wallets, rounded, and items associated with movement or travel are discouraged on or around the bed, rounded, because they symbolize instability and unsettled energy. Illness, financial instability, rounded, and emotional unrest are believed to follow when that boundary is broken. Again, surrounded. Whether or not you view this through a spiritual lens, the psychological implications are profound. Rounded. Your surroundings condition your nervous system. If your bed becomes a magnet for clutter, chaos, surrounded, or unresolved emotion, then your body and mind remain in a state of low-grade survival. Surrounded, not because of what you're doing, but because of what you're allowing. Rounded. And here's where it gets especially important. Surrounded, these cultural warnings weren't designed to control behavior. They were designed to protect energy. Surrounded, to maintain spiritual hygiene, to remind us that we are not just physical beings, we are energetic ones. Rounded, and in every tradition, there's wisdom in that understanding. Because the moment you begin to honor your space, surrounded, especially your bed, as something sacred, you begin to live differently. Surrounded, you move with more intention, you rest with more depth, you think more clearly, you become more resilient. Rounded, The mistake many people make is believing that poverty and sickness are purely external conditions. Surrounded, that they only arrive through bad luck, bad choices, or bad genes. But in truth, rounded, many of these experiences begin as subtle patterns. How we treat ourselves, how we carry our stress, rounded, how we ignore the small things that eventually turn into big problems, rounded. Disregarding cultural wisdom is one of those small things. When you treat everything as superstition, surrounded, you miss the layered intelligence behind tradition. And when you ignore that intelligence, surrounded, you often find yourself repeating cycles that could have been avoided, not because you lacked effort, rounded, but because you lacked alignment. So the question becomes, surrounded, what ancient truths are you dismissing simply because they sound old-fashioned? Surrounded, and more importantly, what might your life look like if you began to live in agreement with those truths? Surrounded, let's talk about something that seems harmless, but is actually one of the biggest silent threats to your peace and productivity. Clutter, specifically clutter on your bed. Now, I want you to think beyond just the physical mess. Rounded, this isn't just about untidiness. It's about what that mess means and how it quietly reprograms your brain, rounded, your emotions, and ultimately your life. The human mind is incredibly responsive to its environment. Neurologically surrounded, your brain is always scanning your surroundings for cues. Cues that determine whether you're safe, surrounded, whether you're in control, and whether it's time to relax or stay alert. When your environment is chaotic, rounded, when your personal space feels disordered, your brain doesn't relax. It can't, surrounded. It stays in a subtle state of stress, releasing cortisol, reducing your capacity to focus, surrounded, and undermining your emotional stability. And here's the part most people don't realize, surrounded. Your bed is one of the most psychologically charged areas in your home, rounded. So when you treat your bed like a side table, a place to drop your bag, your work laptop, your unpaid bills, surrounded, your unfolded laundry, you're not just making a small mess. You're sending a signal to your brain that says, surrounded, this space is not safe, it's not calm, and it's not finished. And that signal, even if it's unconscious, surrounded, has consequences. Sleep becomes lighter, anxiety increases. Your mind starts racing at night instead of resting, rounded, and before long, you're not just tired, you're unmotivated, indecisive, easily irritated, emotionally drained. Surrounded. Now take a step back and see how that connects to poverty and sickness. Not in a mystical way, but in a very real, surrounded. Psychological chain reaction. When your rest is compromised, your decision making is compromised, rounded. When your decision making is compromised, your productivity takes a hit. When productivity drops, rounded, you begin missing opportunities, making poor financial choices, procrastinating on important responsibilities. Surrounded, poverty doesn't always enter through the front door. It sneaks in through overlooked habits. Surrounded, it enters through a lack of clarity, a lack of energy. Surrounded, a lack of discipline that starts in the quiet moments you thought didn't matter. Surrounded, the same applies to your physical health. Sleep is when your body heals, your immune system resets. Surrounded, your hormones rebalance. If your brain never fully shuts down because your environment is cluttered, surrounded, you're depriving yourself of one of the most powerful natural therapies available to you. And over time, surrounded, that shows up not just in fatigue, but in actual illness, headaches, weakened immunity, chronic stress symptoms. Surrounded, all from something as minor as treating your bed like a temporary shelf instead of a sacred space. Rounded, this is why high performers People who lead themselves well, think clearly, surrounded, and move with direction, take their space seriously. They understand that clarity is not just a mental exercise. Rounded, it's environmental. Your outer world reflects and shapes your inner world. When your space is ordered, surrounded, your mind feels more grounded. When your space is clean, you move through your day with a greater sense of control, rounded. And when your bed is respected as a place for rest and restoration, your body, mind, surrounded, and spirit begin to align naturally. This isn't about perfection. This is about intention, rounded. It's about stepping back and asking yourself, what kind of life am I preparing myself for? Surrounded, based on the way I treat the spaces I live in, and if your answer reveals a pattern of neglect or disorganization, rounded, the good news is you can change it tonight. You can take 5 minutes to clear your bed, to create ordered, surrounded, to send a new signal to your mind and body. I am safe. I am in control. I deserve rest. Rounded. If we're going to talk about protecting your bed, rounded, we need to go beyond the surface level idea of cleanliness or aesthetics. Surrounded. What we're really talking about is protecting your energy, your ability to function, to create, to lead, to heal. Rounded. And your bed, of all places, is where that energy is either restored or quietly drained. Surrounded. What you place there isn't just about convenience. It's about what you're allowing to occupy your most vulnerable space. Surrounded. Because here's the truth. When you protect your space, you protect your life. Let's pause here. Surrounded. Think about the moments when you've been the most depleted, mentally, emotionally, even physically. Surrounded. Was it just the workload? Was it just the stress? Or was it the absence of a true place to retreat, reset? Rounded, and come back stronger? Most people don't burn out because they're doing too much. Surrounded. They burn out because they never created space to recharge. The body kept going, rounded, but the soul never had room to breathe. Rounded. And the bed is the first and most powerful place where that healing process is supposed to begin. But if that space is violated by clutter, by technology, surrounded, by unresolved energy, you are unknowingly choosing to live in survival mode. Rounded. Now let's bring this down to a simple, observable truth. Surrounded. Your body cannot heal in the same environment that makes it sick. The same applies to your mind. Surrounded. You can't expect clarity to emerge in the middle of chaos. Surrounded. You can't expect wealth to flow if you live in a space that constantly reflects disorder. Surrounded. You can't expect peace to manifest when your resting space is loaded with distractions. Surrounded. Reminders of unfinished tasks or objects that symbolize pressure. Rounded. The energetic message you're sending to your subconscious is, surrounded, I'm still in the fight. And if your brain believes you're in a fight, it won't rest. Surrounded, it will remain on alert. The result, you stay stuck in cycles of fatigue, overthinking, procrastination, rounded, and low-level anxiety, all of which lead to missed opportunities and compromised well-being. Surrounded, so the solution is both philosophical and practical. Surrounded, protecting your bed means drawing a boundary between the outside world and your inner world. Rounded, it means refusing to let the noise, the stress, surrounded, and the burdens of daily life spill into the one place designed for your restoration. Rounded, that might mean leaving your phone on a nightstand instead of under your pillow. Surrounded, it might mean never putting your work bag, your laptop, or your day clothes on your bed. Surrounded, it might mean creating a simple, calming routine before sleep, clearing your space, dimming the lights. Surrounded, turning inward instead of outward. These aren't just habits, they are rituals of self-respect. Rounded, signals to yourself that your peace is not negotiable. And I want to be clear, surrounded. This isn't about control, it's about alignment. When your space aligns with your values, rounded, your nervous system follows. You begin to feel a kind of grounded power that doesn't come from doing more, surrounded, but from doing less in the right places. You start sleeping deeper, thinking clearer, reacting less, creating more, surrounded. You begin attracting things, not because you're chasing them, surrounded, but because your energy is now in a state that can hold them. That's the shift. So the question is, surrounded, what are you allowing to stay in your space that's no longer serving you? And more importantly, surrounded, what would happen if you removed it? If you created even a small pocket of order, of silence, rounded, of sacredness, just for yourself? Because in the end, this isn't about superstition or routine. Rounded, it's about sovereignty. It's about taking back ownership of your energy, one small choice at a time. Surrounded, and your bed, that's the first battlefield. That's where you begin.